Hello and welcome to the Vicars Watch Dibley,
the podcast where three priests link our stories with those of a Reverend Geraldine Granger and other TV vicars. I'm Kate.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Ruthie. This episode we're going to be talking about us, about who we are, what we're doing, and why on earth we're doing this podcast.
So excited. Should we get started?
Yeah, do we have any idea what we're doing?
No, not at all.
That's the fun bit though, isn't it?
Absolutely. Should we let other people know who we are, as we all know each other, but should we introduce ourselves?
I think that would be a good idea.
Hello, Jenny.
Hello.
Who are you? Are you a vicar?
Yes, so my name's Jenny. I am indeed a vicar. What can I tell you? I was ordained in 2016. In the Peterborough Diocese, which I've loved. And now I've been in my first incumbency, so that's like the first job as a full-time vicar, rather than a curate. That's like a trainee vicar since 2019. So I am a vicar and loving life.
Oh, that's fab. And what's a diocese, Jenny?
I like to think of it as the UK is divided into counties. I feel like the diocese or dioceses, which is a horrendous word to try and say, it's almost like, it's like how we divide up churches. It's similar to counties, but it's slightly different. That's how I describe it. What do you guys think? I'm a bit rubbish with those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think counties and dioceses actually have a huge overlap because they're kind of a historic, but because some boundaries have changed, they're not always exactly the same.
Yeah, that can be difficult when it comes to weddings and legal documents and stuff. But anyway, that's a bit boring. Sorry, ignore that.
We'll talk about that at some other point when we've run out of other things to talk about. So, Jenny, when you're not being a vicar, what kind of things do you like doing?
Oh, that's a great question. So I like to go for walks. My favourite thing about my life is, well, one of them, I should say, obviously the Lord, obviously my gorgeous fiance, but I have a dog called Henry, who is the love of my life. So walking with him, playing with him, seeing family and friends. But my favourite thing of all to do is, when I'm not working, having a cup of coffee, usually out and about, and reading a book. That's what I love.
Oh, and Henry is the most handsome boy ever, so completely understand why he's the love of your life.
And Jesus.
Obviously.
And your fiance.
All three. The trinity of my loves.
So that's Jenny, and we also have here Kate.
Woo! Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey. Are you a vicar?
Sort of, maybe. Not quite, but also yes.
Okay.
I'm what's called a rural pioneer priest.
Woo.
Yeah, it's a weird title, guys, honestly. So I was ordained the year after Jenny in 2017 in Sheffield Diocese, which is where I did all my kind of on-the-job training. Being a curate is a bit like being a newly qualified teacher, so you're not on your own yet. But I started my new job in Hereford Diocese a few months ago. And my role it's a bit experimental. It's looking at different ways of doing rural ministry. So a bit like Geraldine Granger, but reimagining what it looks like. So, and you know what? Most exciting thing about this job, I am literally a parish boundary away from being the Vicar of Dibley.
No way!
Yeah,
I didn't know
I
that.
know.
Oh, that is so perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect. So when you're not being the vicar of nearly Diddley but not quite Diddley, what is it that you like to do?
So I love reading, and I particularly enjoy searching out really bad fanfic and really bad self-published novels. This is because I studied English at university, and when I was doing that I discovered that I started being really critical when I was reading and over-analysing all these authors I really loved. So I decided to just lean into it and find stuff which makes me laugh and I think is ridiculous. I also love music, and I do a lot of art and drawing. as well.
You do fabulous drawings. You did a whole series of Advent drawings, didn't you?
Yes.
And they were just fabulous. And I'm waiting for you to get a print for me so I can have one of them, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I piggybacked on a load of your drawings and used it as a sermon one week in Advent. It was amazing. I was like, I've not got very much brain capacity. I know what I'll do. I'll just borrow Kate's amazing drawings and do a whole sermon off it. It was awesome.
So, Ruthie.
Hi.
Are you a vicar?
No, not really. But here I am. I'm like these two, I'm ordained. So I'm a priest in the Church of England, and I got ordained the same time as Jenny. In fact, the week after, I think, because I was at Jenny's ordination. But now I do a slightly different role. So I was a curate like these guys, but I was in York Diocese. And now I live in Sheffield Diocese because my husband is a vicar. So I live in a parish and I have something that's called PTO, which is permission to officiate. So I'm able, I know it's really fancy, isn't it? But I always think it's please turn over as opposed to permission to officiate. Everyone else gets confused by that. So I do Sunday services and things like that in the diocese. But because we have a toddler who is just turned 2 and is amazing, but it's easier for us with one of us having a vicar role, and I do something slightly different. So I work for Missional Youth Church Network, who are trying to promote creating churches specifically for young people. So I do a vicar role in some ways, but I don't in others.
Can I just ask, Ruthie, so following on, I feel like when we say to each other, are you a vicar? What people probably want to know is, do you wear a dog collar to your day job?
I do sometimes wear my dog collar, but not always. So I spend quite a lot of my time working from home at a desk. And so wearing dog collar doesn't seem to have much point when it's just me and the dog in the house quite a lot of the time. But sometimes if I'm going out to a youth group or a work thing, then I'll wear my dog collar to that.
And how about you, Kate? Do you spend most of your time in your collar?
Yeah, unless I'm like Ruthie, when I'm working from home and I'm not seeing anyone, I'm gonna be in my comfiest clothes imaginable. But because I have 5 villages that I look after, I think it's really important for people to see me and know that I'm their vicar, because I'm not able to be in every village all the time. So I will wear my dog collar, my clericals, out and about around the villages, going to the shop, whatever. Yeah.
You've got some really jazzy shirts, haven't you, Kate?
I do. I kind of have the combination. I have some which are really fun, with fun patterns. Sometimes I'll wear what's called a bib stock. So that's really just kind of like an undershirt, dog collar underneath a dress. But more often, actually, more recently, I've been finding myself wearing a lot more black, because people associate it more with vicars, and it's a really clear and obvious sign.
I mean, yeah, I feel like for people that don't know about clerical wear, it's basically like a crop top, isn't it? And there's a real terrible temptation in summer to not have to wear anything else but your little. I mean, I would never get away with that, but every year when it's roasting hot, just your crop top dog collar is a temptation. But yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's good to know.
Clericals in summer is punishment.
Yeah,
it is really
in your
difficult.
full robes. Woo.
Jenny, do you wear your clericals out and about?
Yeah, well, I thought what you said, Kate, about, when you're wearing your dog collar out and about, people know who you are, and they can relate to you, like, oh, you vicar here, da, da, da. So I do. I tend to wear mine pretty much day and night, when I'm out and about, when I'm visiting people. Actually, to be honest, even when I'm just working at home, because so often in my job, people come to the door and they're looking for the vicar. And I have had a couple of times where I haven't been wearing it, not in my current post, but when I was a curate. And I wasn't wearing my collar. I'd come to the door. Someone was looking for, the curate to talk to something about. I'd open the door and they'd go, hello, is your mum or your dad in?
Yes! I've had that too!
And me!
That's the problem with it. Face. I feel like my massive bags of sleep deprivation now, they've aged my face. But when I was a curate, I looked so young and fresh and funky. And everyone was like, your mum and dad in? And I was like, no, you're looking for me.
For me as well, because I look really young, and my predecessor, the person who was the rector here before I came, was a woman old enough to be my mum. So I have had times where people have come to the door not realising that I'm the new vicar. They think the old vicar is still in place, and they'll say, "Oh, is your mum here?" And I have to really awkwardly explain, especially if they've come when I'm like on holiday or it's my day off and I'm in pyjamas at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm sure, Kate, haven't you, now you might not want me to out you here, but haven't you got a hilarious story about someone who was quite important that came to the door and you were dressed in fluffies?
Yes. When I moved in, I had about a month before I started my job to just settle in, and one day I guess it was about 10 o'clock. I hadn't gotten up yet. I was enjoying that holiday life, you know. I was in my pyjamas and I was wearing, you know, like not full length pyjamas. I was wearing shorts, you know.
Oh, no.
There was a ring at the doorbell. I thought, oh no, is it a
no.
package? Oh no, I came down. I don't know what possessed me. I was half asleep. I opened the door and it was a retired bishop who lives in the area. And it was so awkward.
Well, that's the
Amazing.
thing. Your vicarages, it's like all vicarages, they're kind of public domain, but they're also personal property, and so you just never know what's going to answer the door, do you really? I guess a good warning to give your parishioners from the beginning of your ministry.
It's a lesson to learn. Don't answer the door unless you've got something to cover up nearby.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So for any clergy listening to this podcast, you can expect fantastic tips, can't you, on how to just ace your ministry.
So anyway, Ruthie, when you're not being vicar adjacent, what do you like to do in your spare time?
In my spare time, I've got family and friends that I like to go see. Obviously, husband, toddler and dog take up quite a lot of time, so it's nice going for walks with them and exploring this area of South Yorkshire, which I've not lived in South Yorkshire before, so this is exciting to get to know this place. I also love getting messy in various different ways, whether that's baking or whatever craft project I have on the go at the moment. I've started trying to knit again. I didn't learn to knit when I was younger, but I've started trying to knit again, mainly because I have a tendency in the evening to sit and relax and watch TV and eat snacks. So I figured if I was knitting, then there's less chance that I can shove chocolate in my face.
That's amazing. Something to occupy your hands. That's a good idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we all know each other?
Oh my goodness, where to start?
Well, we all met in Durham, didn't we, when we were at theological college training there, and we all started in the same year. Can you remember when we first actually met?
It was before term started.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember, Ruthie, walking over from the kind of accommodation we had at our theological training college to some older ordinand's house who was going to be like, "Hi, welcome to the college, settle in, like, this is who we are." And I remember we walked over from our accommodation to that house in Durham. And I think that was, and I remember you'd made cakes. And I was like, who is this person that she has time to make cakes to take to this party where we had like hardly any notice at all? And I remember that because I remember you were wearing really bold eyeliner, and I remember thinking, this girl's really cool, and because I'm not cool and she's super cool. That has never changed.
Oh, it was probably because I was so frightened that I would be the loser and not have any friends. That was like, I need to look as cool as possible. So I'll put on eyeliner and bring cakes to try and get people to like me.
It worked, babe. It worked.
I remember just being so excited and relieved that there were two other people like me in the cohort, that you two were so cool, that you were so fun, but also like we were a similar age and we had similar interests. It was such a relief.
Yeah, that was the beginning of a very special couple of years, or 3 years. I think Ruthie and I, we did 2 years, didn't we, at our training college? And Kate, you did 3. Just because we'd done theology before, hadn't we?
Yeah, the way that training works is if you'd studied theology before, you only did 2 years, but I studied English and linguistics, so I had to do an extra year. I got to do an extra year. but I missed you too.
Oh my goodness, it must have been horrendous when we left. But also that's because we were all, crazily enough, we were all under 30 at the time. I think that's really worth saying. Like, yes, we have our baby faces, but it's because at the time of training we were all, well under 30. Okay, so we've kind of had a bit of a chat about who we are, how we know each other. But the big question really is, what on earth are we doing? Why are we doing this podcast? I feel like, Kate, can you kick us off? Because I feel like the original idea sparked with you. Am I right?
Yeah. I love the Vicar of Dibley. This is something, actually, we used to talk about this a lot. At theological college as well, while we were training, we used to watch the Vicar of Dibley so much, because I think for many young female clergy, especially when we were training in our 20s, there weren't a lot of female role models of clergy on TV. Now we've got a few other people, but at the time our touchstone really was the Vicar of Dibley. She was who we knew to be what a female vicar was like. So we used to watch it a lot, and the more we learnt about being a vicar, I think we'd go through phases of this is amazing or this is horrifying. So it's something that unites us, really. What about you, Jenny?
That's a really good point. Yeah, I remember doing that at college. But do you know what? My Vicar of Dibley life, I remember even at university, so going back to like 2009, 2012, we would just, like in the days before binge watching Netflix even existed, we would watch back to back Vicar of Dibley, because it's so funny, like whether you're of faith and get the church or not. And you're right, actually, I found it really moving when you were saying about the Vicar of Dibley being our first role model as what a female clergy person would look like. Because you're absolutely right. In my churches growing up, it had always been like male vicars or like even male youth leaders. And so Geraldine Granger really was the first female vicar that I ever saw and was like, oh, right, that's a thing. It wasn't until, 2012 was the first time I actually met a first woman vicar. She was teaching where I was doing my theology undergraduate degree. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's real. But yeah, before that, it had all been fictional. So I think you're absolutely right. We're doing this because we've got such a deep love and connection for Geraldine. It connects us to each other. It connects us to churches like around the world. And I think it's really something that everyone can, enjoy, whether they're in the church or of faith or not. So that's why, so good.
When I was at theological college, there was an essay they wanted us to write, which was about why we're an Anglican and which Anglicans had influenced us. Being an Anglican so the Church of England is part of the Anglican Church. It's a denomination like being Catholic or Methodist or whatever it might be. So we had to write this essay on who were the Anglicans who influenced us. And I requested to write about Geraldine Granger, because I genuinely couldn't think of many other Anglicans who would influence me. I'm not a good theologian, and I don't have kind of all of these people in the back of my head going, oh, these are the Anglicans who've influenced me the most. Exactly.
C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, well, I ended up writing about C.S. Lewis because they told me I couldn't write about Geraldine Granger because she was fictional. So, but yeah, like these two have said, they were genuinely, it was Geraldine Granger who was the woman vicar that I knew. And when I first thought that God might be asking me to be a priest, I was 17 years old. She was the person that made me go, do you know what? If Geraldine can do it, maybe I can. Oh, so maybe that's not the best influence, but it was the person she was a fun and funky priest, and she was young, and she had all these hobbies and all these loves and these passions, and she was a bit cheeky and a bit naughty, and I thought, I'm far more like that than the bloke with the beard and the bad breath.
Totally. And I bet in a later episode we'll talk more about how each of us felt called or drawn or inspired or whatever to become a priest. And we can delve a bit more into that at a later time. Another really important thing about the Vicar of Dibley is that it was released just as the vote for female clergy was going through. So one of the things I love about the Vicar of Dibley, and I know that Ruthie and Jenny love too, is that she was a groundbreaker. She normalised female clergy, and that's something we want to do as part of his podcast, because being a vicar, and particularly being a female vicar, has changed so much since Vicar of Dibley came out, that we want to help people learn about what it is we do and who we are. So if you've got any questions, please do ask us.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we thought was really important about this, is just to talk about different experiences of being a woman who is a priest and young women who are priests, and the different things that come with that, and share our joys but also our horror stories that come with all of that. So we would genuinely love to hear if you have any questions, and Jenny's going to tell us how you can do that.
Yes, so there are a couple of ways you can get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts, answer any questions you have. If you are an email person, then our email address is vicarswatchdibley@gmail.com, or you can follow our adventures on Instagram, and our handle is @VicarsWatchDibley.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Vicars Watch Dibley. Thank you to Toby for editing all our ramblings.
Any views expressed in this podcast are our own and don't necessarily represent those of the Church of England or any other organisations with which we are affiliated.
And as always, bless you for listening.
In true Vicar of Dibley style, when we finish an episode, we're going to have a joke, because of course we're going to have a joke. I believe Jenny has got a joke for us today.
Prepare thyselves. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Europe.
Europe.
And that's the level of humour we'll be hitting at on this particular podcast. You look very pleased with yourself, Jenny.
Delighted.